For this project, I want to make a picture of a barnyard pig. Now, you can make all kinds of changes. I've got a barn in the background of mine, but you don't have to have the barn. Yours could just be in a pig pen. You could have a food trough. You could have other pigs. You could have people in the picture, kids. Maybe somebody's trying to ride the pig. Or this could be at the county fair. You could put a great big ribbon around the pig's neck. Maybe the pig won first place in a contest. And so you could put this at a county fair. You could put a Ferris wheel in the background, or people playing games, or whatever you can just dream up. And you can also make some creative changes. My pig is pink, but you could make your pig a different color. I've been very careful about my coloring so that it comes out nice and smooth. And to get that, I go back and forth with little short strokes, about 2 fingers wide. This one was a little less, but anyway, usually about 2 fingers wide. And I like the contrast between this bright red and this dark black. If you want to do the barn, you can follow me when I do my barn. But if you don't, then you can put something else in here. Or you can put the barn off to the side somewhere. So there's some things you can do that are different than mine. Now let's get started. And first we need to find the middle of the paper and put our finger there. Look, the space all the way around should be the same. You should have equal space all the way around your finger. Point to the middle of your finger and then slide your finger down. We're going to put a circle there for the pig's nose. And I like to practice that by going around and around the shape of the tip of my finger. And after I practice that motion, or practice that, then I practice right here, and that's where I put the pig's nose. I want it about that big. I'll draw with the marker so that you can see better, but you should draw with the pencil because it'll be much easier to erase. This is what you get if you just draw a regular line, but you should draw lightly until you get it the way you want it. This line is easy to erase, and this one probably cannot even be erased. Could a little bit, but it would not completely go away. I'll put 2 marks like this on the pig's nose, and then cover the nose with your finger. Put the bottom of the pig's eye here, and another line just like it there. Above those lines I put the rainbow shapes that make the eyes. You can make creative changes here because there are different ways to make eyes, but this one works really well for me, so I use it a lot. You can put eyelashes on if you want, and maybe some eyebrows. Now, it's time to do the shape of the pig's head, which is going to be round. We'll do the mouth in just a minute. Let's get the round head on here first. So what I do is I slide my finger up where the eyebrows are, and then I slide it up just a little more. I'll put a dot right there. I'm making the dot small because I don't want that to show up later. And the reason I didn't put the dot up here is because I don't want to have a cone head pig. I want my pig to have a round head. Slide your finger up to the nose and then slide it back down until you see a little white space. And that's where we'll put the other dot. Now we need to make the head round. I'm going to practice that with a pencil and make a very light line using sketch strokes, which are just little short light lines put together to make a longer line. I'll use sketch strokes there, and when that looks good, I'll work on the other side and I'll do sketch strokes and I'll make the letter D. Just draw very, very lightly. Once you get it round and you get all the corrections made that you want to make, then you can make the line a little bit darker. And I think mine's okay now, so I'll darken that in. And I'll just hook the pig's mouth on like this to the bottom of his nose. And then it's time for the pig's ears, and you really need to watch carefully on this, because this is one of the harder parts of the whole picture. Put your finger like this between the eyebrows, and then slide over and stop beside the pig's head. The ears don't go on top, and they don't go completely on the side. They're a little bit like this, just up on the head about halfway. Put an equal sign over top of your finger that's as long as your finger. Make sure you've got some space in between those two lines. It's just a double line. And let's do it again on the other side. Just slide straight over. Make a line that's as long as your finger is wide. Double it up like an equal sign. Hook onto the end of this and bend it down to the pig's head. And stay caught up with me here, because this will not be easy to figure out if you get behind. Now we're going to put a V that's like tilted over. It's like a letter V right there to put points. Put these little points on the pig's ear. Skip down a space and put a little dot for a hook-on point. Make the bottom of a letter C. It comes around and touches the pig's head. On the other side, you put your little hook-on point, and then you come down like the front of a letter D. The bottom half of a D, sorta. It's actually pretty round. It would not be exactly like letters, but what I want are little rounded shapes that hook to the head, and then we'll just go back and hook these up like this. Bend that line if you need to bend it, and just hook it to the top part of the ear. And you should have pretty good looking pig's ears. Now later you can come back and decorate or do whatever fancy thing you want. I'll put a few little marks there for hair on top of the pig's head, but you could put a bow or a ribbon or something. You can do that later. We need to move on. Now I'm going to have to turn this upside down, because we've got to work on the pig's body, and we've got to get the legs on there first, and I think this is the best way to do it. Put your finger on the middle of the pig's head like this, maybe lined up with the nose, and we're going to push our finger way up here, about maybe 2 or 3 fingers. We're going to push up. I'll just lay my hand there so I can kind of judge that. I'm going to push way up in there. And watch, I'll do this with a pencil. Now let's see, we're 2 or 3 fingers up. And I'm going to put a line, it's like a rainbow shape, over top of my finger, starting from one side and coming to the other side. And then I'm going to put a line that hooks on here. I'm not moving my finger. I'm going to put a line that hooks on here and goes just like this, nice and straight. That's about a fingernail tall. And I'll do it again over here. I want those about the same length. I'll darken those in, and then we'll turn this back up the other way, and we'll draw the pig's body, and I'll show you what we have to do. All right, let's get this turned around. Now, pay attention to this. If you do not get this, then your pig's not going to turn. It's not going to turn out very well. You've got to cover this up when we draw this line. But before we draw the new line, we've got to go over here and put a little dot. It's about, I'm going to let that line run onto my fingernail like this through the middle of my finger. I'm going to put the dot over about right here. And now I'm going to cover this up because I don't want to hook onto that. I want to hook on right here on the pig's head. Now it's a little bit awkward, but if you cover that up, you can do this. You can do this easily. And you can double check that your dot is lined up with the bottom of these other pieces. Now, we'll cover this back up, and we're going to hook on right here. And you can practice this with the eraser because we want this kind of to be round and come right down to that dot. See, it starts out kind of rounded and then it just runs down to that dot. And we've got to do it again on this other side. So I'll put my dot there and I'll cover this up because I don't want to hook to it. I'll hook on up here. I'm going to just bring a very light line around. I draw lightly so I can make changes. And I'm going to go ahead and darken mine in. After I change this line a little bit. The good thing about drawing light is that it's easy to fix. When I get it the way I want it, then I'll darken it in. And that leaves us with having to put on some feet. Feet shouldn't be too hard to do because they're shaped like letter W's. Now hopefully you still have room. And what I'll do is I'll start with a line that slants that way, and then I'll make it into kind of like a sideways V. And I come back down again like I'm going to make that into a W, only as I go up, I bend that line up onto the inside line here. And I do the same thing over here. I start with like a sideways V to get one part of the foot, and then I go like I'm going to make another part to make that into a crooked W, and I bend that up onto there, and that makes the pig's feet. Now hopefully you've got a pretty good looking little pig. Now this is where you can start doing some creative thinking. I'm going to do a barn, but from here on you can do your own thing and you don't have to follow me on this. If you want to do the barn, then do what I do. But if you want to put this at a county fair and put a first place ribbon, you can put a big ribbon that you make up yourself on the pig, hang it around its neck or whatever. Put bow in the hair, somebody riding it, whatever you want to do. I'm going to make a barn. And somebody said there was a story that had pigs and barns in it that's real popular on DVD right now. And I think maybe come out at the movies. I'm going to just go about right under the pig's chin right here and slide over. And I'm going to make a line that goes from just barely outside of the pig's ear straight down to my finger on both sides, just from under about the pig's chin, just like this. I don't know what to tell you to do other than just watch and then try to follow along. I want the bottoms of these lines to be at the same place on the paper so that they line up. Now I've got to put the rest of the barn door opening in there, and I've got to get it above the pig's head some. So I'm going to go up a little bit more, maybe about another finger or two, maybe a finger or two on both sides, and then I'll just put a line across and make that the opening for the barn door. And I know that I eventually have to double up these lines, so I'll go ahead and double them up now. Then I'll see how much room I have left for the top of the barn. Hopefully I'll have enough room to make a really nice, pretty shaped roof. I think I can slide over maybe about 2 fingers from here and put a dot. And of course if I do that on that side, I need to do it over here also. Skip over about 2 fingers. And I want these lines about half as tall as the door. So I'll go about halfway up on that, and I'll slide over, and I'll put a straight up and down line right here, and a straight up and down line right here. Now, if you're doing the barn, you'll have to pay attention to this because it's going to be very hard to get it to look right if you don't. Slide your finger right here. Now skip over about 1 finger. Put a dot right there. Skip over 1 finger and put a dot about right here. And this line slants from here to here and crosses over a little bit. From here to here and crosses over a little bit. Now to get the rest of the roof, we have to go up in here, and we're going to make this. We're going to make another slanted line, but we've got to put the top of the roof. I'm going to put it about halfway. I'm going to look at this space. I'm going to go about halfway and put a dot. That's going to be the top of my barn roof right there. And I'm going to slant to it. And I'm going to slant to this. Now this is another very, very difficult part because the lines change directions. It slants and then it slants steeper. I'll double those lines up. And then I'll put a line from here over to here, and if these don't come together, I'll make them come together nice and square, and then I'll erase whatever's left over. I'm using a marker, so I can't do much erasing, but you will be able to. That's not a bad shape for a barn, but we need to get maybe a window in up here somewhere. You could have windows on the side. We're not going to fool with putting, crossbars or anything in that. We're just going to let these be just openings. You might have shutters or something on them. You could draw shutters, but that's something we'd just have to come back and do later. All right, I'm going to put another piece on my barn. I'll show you. You don't have to do this. I think that's called a silo. This piece sticks up. It's just extra storage area. And if you like it, it goes like this. It just hooks on. You just get on that line and skip over and go straight on up, ever how tall you want that to be. I'm going to stop and leave room for the cone-shaped top. And put a line across like that. It starts out as a rectangle. You might think of it like a chimney, a really gigantic chimney at first. And this can either be rounded or it can be a triangle. And I think I'll make mine a triangle. I'll get the dot up there, and then I'll do the slanted lines. Put the window in that. And my barn's kind of wide, but I think it's going to look all right. It's going to turn out okay. Now you could put a fence across here if you want to. We could put a line that shows where the ground and the sky come together. I'm going to make mine like it's got a couple of rolling hills in the background and put some trees on it. But first, I think I'm going to get this little piece in here for this fence. I'll put the bottom piece of the fence on first. I drew the line for the ground. Now I'm doing 2 lines for the first fence rail. I'll show you this up close. And you know what? I'm going to have to stop and put my name on it. And I'll let you watch me draw, but I'm going to go ahead and start you some music and let you, you can either follow along or you can make up your own stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and start you some music and let you be doing some creative thinking. And I sure hope it was fun.